Ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers of AfryKamera, let me introduce you to Yuhi Amuli, the director of the film Taste of Our Land. Hello, Yuhi. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
I would like to start with the question about this Chinese influence on African land. You depicted it in an unnamed country. I am very curious if it's so strong and how does it look like?
In many, like it is what it sounds like. It's not philosophical in any way. In many African countries that I've been to, the Chinese presence is very clear in a way that many of the big buildings, many of the biggest roads in all the countries, and sometimes many of the biggest countries and industries are owned by Chinese people. So like the presence is like in your eyes. There is no hiding that. It's not a metaphor. So it's that the Chinese people
Is
are
it so
around.
strong and is it so brutal as you depicted it in the film? In the film, we can see that actually the people who are the owners of any form of factory or miner or anything, they are ready to do anything just to get more and more and more money. I am just curious if the relationship between Chinese people in African countries look similar. If it's like that, that actually Chinese people come there, they invest their money, and the African people, the local people, they become like a new slavery for them.
I can only speak from my experience, and in my experience, which is where I got the inspiration to make the film, is that I also worked in a Chinese-run mine in the east of my country. And in this mine, I saw it with my eyes, Chinese people beating locals for simple things like being late, like sometimes asking for their delayed pay. So I saw it, and maybe that's just my experience or just what I saw. But yes, I agree that there is, you could say it's not everybody, but that is a reality that some of those Chinese people are brutal against Africans in many African settings.
And could you say a little bit more about this experience? Could you say a little bit more about how long you were working there and in what kind of form? How did it look like?
It was a mine. They were mining coltan, like the one mentioned in the film. And I was like the middle person, like the Gangi character in the film, the guy who spoke English and who was like the translator and kind of the middle guy between the locals and the Chinese people. And I didn't last long. I worked there for 4 months. And I left because it was really hard for me to be experiencing those kinds of brutal situations for my people.
Gotcha. In the film, it's really interesting in terms that actually Yohani, he doesn't know the value of the gold that actually he's digging for and he's looking for. So it also it was really interested for me in terms of if in the real life it looks also similar, if the people who worked for Chinese, if the people who work in miners, they are not actually aware of what they do and with what kind of goods they work in.
Well, that's the reality. Like people who work there, many of them are not trained. They're just poor people who like have no other option than going underground, like going to work in those very dangerous situations. So they have no information except that everybody thinks gold is not only gold, but like minerals are very expensive things. But like they don't know. Even myself, I don't know. Like if I found gold today, I don't even know where I would take it. I mean, no, that's an exaggeration. I would know where to take it, but I think it's a reality that people who work in mines, especially, those kinds of minds, like the ones depicted in the film, don't really know the actual values of what they are digging. And I think you probably have heard about the situation with the kids, like working in those similar mines. Like those kids have no idea what they are, like the value of what they are digging. So I think that's why I depicted Yohani that way. To me, it made so much sense that what he wanted was just anything to help his wife. He wasn't very much interested in the actual value of the stone.
So, were the moment when you started working there, was that the moment when actually you decided to make a film about it? You were influenced, inspired. Did you start to like look for some more information or research in that moment, or did the story come to you later?
2 years later, like I left, and I was pretty young, and I was still like trying to even decide 100% that I wanted to make films. Like I had like when I left, I had only made my first short film, so I didn't get to the decision to actually make a film about it until after 2 years, when the story still haunted me. You know, like I left but kept thinking about it, kept seeing other similar things everywhere in all African countries, and realizing that this wasn't just a problem in my own country, it's a problem everywhere. And as an artist, I decided that making this film would be like my contribution to starting a conversation around it, to see if we can shed some light to it and probably reach some kind of justice.
But was it any how controversial subject for you? Did you have to be afraid of the people, of Chinese people or anybody who can react for your film in a very badly way? Or was it something that actually you didn't have to care about?
Well, I did to some extent. For instance, I spent a lot of time trying to look for a Chinese actor, and no Chinese national wanted to play that character. So I ended up settling for a Korean, like a friend who was willing to act as a Chinese person. So that was one thing. Another thing is, for many countries where that situation is, some elites in those countries actually benefit from the presence of the Chinese in those countries. So it's not something they wanna go into, you know. So when I was writing the film, when I was making the film, I knew there would be that layer. Like at this moment, I'm prepared that I might never travel to China in my life. I
Gotcha.
don't know. Yeah.
And did the film start any discussion in your countries or the other African countries that actually have to handle with this problem?
Well, actually, no, because we only released the film in February in the US, and we had like a strong reaction to the film. And that's where the discussions happened. But I haven't managed to show it in my country yet because of Corona, but we are still making plans. And hopefully after I show it, hopefully it will start some conversations.
And did you have any reactions from the Chinese viewers or the Chinese people? Like, as you mentioned, you presented this film in the US, it was released there. So did you get any feedback?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not even sure if any Chinese person has seen it yet. I don't know. I
Gotcha.
don't know.
And I was also curious because when I was watching your film, I had the impression that it's really like told in a way that can be understood anywhere, like in any part of the world. I was just curious how much important for you it was to depict the reality of people living in this unnamed African country, how much you wanted that the people, that the viewer from the other places in the world could relate this character to the situation in Africa nowadays.
I mean, it's something I've been training myself to do since I made my first short film, like trying to make my story relatable to wherever they are being shown, to a priest in Japan or a prostitute in Australia, like anyone in the world. It's something I've been training myself to do. And with this story that kind of resonated with many African countries, I really insisted on that. Like I had it at the back of my mind while writing and making the film and doing the casting. And that's why I ended up making it in English, because I had considered so many languages, like vernacular languages, like my language, Kinyarwanda, or the language of the country where I shot it in Uganda, or Swahili, because it's widely spoken as well in Africa. But then I ended up settling for English because for more than 12 countries in Africa, they have their constitutions written in English. So this film that sort of compared the old colonial master versus the new coming colonial master, it made sense to me to make it in a colonial language. And also, I decided to make it in English because, well, I guess that sounds like a different question I'm answering. The
Please
reason why I
continue
made it in
because it's
English.
super interesting. So please just continue.
Yeah, so yeah, I was saying I made it in English because, like, for many African countries, English is very present, to the point where, like, for more than 12 countries, their constitutions are written in English, and English a colonial language. Reason number two is that I could say I'm a victim of that presence of English, because I also use English for like 90% of my life, even though it's not my first language. So yeah.
Gotcha. And actually, it's very interesting what you just said about this colonialism. Like, do you consider that this Chinese invasion is a new form of colonialism in Africa?
Yes. Like, it's, yeah, and you just said it right. It's just a different form. But if you look at the way with the deaths, I mean, let me see, how can I put it? Like, if you look at how they present their trading contracts to Africans, to me, it doesn't seem like just business. It seems like it has a hidden agenda. So I really do think it's some other kind or some other form of colonialism that's happening currently. And it's actually scary to me. I feel like in 100 years, it's going to be worse. That's what I think.
Like the history repeats itself again, but in the new form, just as you mentioned. Yuhi, you mentioned
Yep.
about how did you find the actor who played Cheng, but I'm also curious, how did you manage to find the actor who plays Yohani? He's incredible on the screen, and he really leads us to this story. So how did you manage to cast him?
So I knew of him because he's pretty popular in Uganda, where I was living at that time and where I was planning to shoot the film. And I had some crew members when I was still developing the film who had worked with him before and were explaining to me how good he is, how easy it is to work with him and stuff. But then when it was time to actually cast him, I just called him and set up a meeting and talked for hours about the project and about what he would like to, like how interested he then became about the project. And yeah, then since then he was very, very invested in the film, and he didn't only act, but he also did a lot of other things as a crew member. We couldn't have done the film without him.
And in the end, I would like to ask you about how challenging it was for you to make this film. You mentioned that you shoot in Uganda. Was it anyhow problematic for anybody that actually you are touching this very like gentle subject, or that you decided to speak up about it? Was it a problem for anybody, or was it something that actually you managed with no big challenges?
Well, the challenges were there, but they were regular challenges, like yeah, like having to deal with permits and securing the location of that mine. You know, like that mine is a very sensitive mine. It was built like in 1920, 1926, and it's half operational today, but the authorities are still very serious about the mine. So it was really hard getting permission to shoot there, and there were so many like police guarding us and stuff. But as a film itself, the subject itself, it wasn't a problem for anyone, and it's something I actually felt very grateful for, that I felt free, you know. In Uganda, as a Rwandan, it wasn't a problem that I was making a film. Like, it was really easy in terms of the topic and me being Rwandan. And actually, at that time when I was shooting the film, the two countries had there were some political issues going on, and the two countries had closed their borders to each other, the land borders. So like there was no crossing like the borders, and so there was a potential that I could have had problems shooting since I was Rwandan, but it actually didn't happen. Yeah, like it was pretty smooth. Yeah.
And is it
But
better?
then you were asking when you began asking the question, you talked about how it changed me, something like that. Did you say something like that?
I just wanted to ask if the situation between two countries changed, and is it better right now? I'm asking this question in terms of the future of your film, if it's going to be distributed in both countries.
Well, the thing is, I can still easily show the film in two countries. It feels like the two countries are busy with other things, that they are not so wouldn't be so preoccupied by this one film that was made in Uganda by Rwanda. So I feel like, yeah, we still managed to show the films when it's possible to show the film again after Corona.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it wouldn't have anything to do with whatever political things are going on between the two countries.
So let's hope it's gonna stay like that, that the culture will be still free and it will be still able to present it everywhere. Yuhi, thank you so much for this great film, and thank you so much for finding the time to speak with us. And hopefully you visit Poland at the next edition of AfryKamera physically.
I hope so too. Thank you a lot for your time.
Thank you. Take care.
Mm-hmm.